Sorry, sir, we can't accept this.
But this is my veteran ID.
Never underestimate the quiet ones. Sometimes the most faded caps hide the brightest truths. This story will prove it. The bell above the dusty gun shop door jingled as it opened, the kind of sound that barely made heads turn. Inside, the air smelled of oil, metal, and stale coffee. Rows of rifles and boxes of ammunition lined the walls under humming fluorescent lights. An elderly man shuffled in. His back was slightly hunched, his walk slow but steady. He wore a faded green cap, the kind with yellowed stitching that simply read, "Vietnam Veteran." He approached the counter, pulling out a small, battered wallet. His voice was soft, steady, but carried the weight of decades. "Son, I'd like to buy some rounds." Nothing more. The young clerk behind the counter looked up, smirked, and then shoved the old man by the shoulder. His voice was sharp, cruel, and loud enough for the whole shop to hear. "Get out of here, Grandpa. We don't sell to relics. You can barely stand straight. Guys like you shouldn't even own a firearm. You're a danger to yourself and to everyone else." The words hit like a slap. The shop grew tense. A few customers glanced over but quickly looked away, pretending to browse. No one wanted to get involved. The veteran steadied himself against the counter, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from the scars of service. Scars both visible and hidden. Slowly, he placed his wallet down, sliding his veteran ID across the counter. His voice quivered but did not break. "I served this country. I earned the right." The clerk scoffed, cutting him off before he could finish. "Earned? That was 50 years ago. Times have changed, old man. You're useless now. Take your dusty medals and get out." Gasps rippled through the room. The humiliation was sharp, almost physical. The veteran's lips trembled. He gathered his belongings quietly, nodded to no one in particular, and shuffled toward the door. As the bell chimed again, his voice came out in a whisper only a few heard. "I buried brothers, so men like this could live free." The door closed behind him. The clerk leaned on the counter, scrolling through his phone, smirking at the thought of putting that old geezer in his place. But what the clerk didn't know was this: the veteran was no ordinary customer. Speech balloon. Before we go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing people from all over the world here. The street outside the gun shop was quiet, the kind of silence that clings to small towns after dusk. The veteran stood just beyond the glass door, his cap shadowing tired eyes. He inhaled deeply, trying to push down the sting of humiliation pressing heavy on his chest. But only minutes later, 7 to be exact, the silence shattered. The low growl of engines echoed down the street. 1, then 2, then 3 dark SUVs rolled up, headlights cutting through the night. Tires screeched as they stopped in perfect alignment, their doors flung open with practiced precision. From each vehicle stepped men in combat gear, broad-shouldered, armored, armed, their movements sharp and unified. Boots struck the pavement like drums of war. Navy SEALs. They moved with precision, forming up behind the veteran as if he were still their commander. Their faces were steeled with purpose, rifles slung across their chests. Inside the shop, the clerk was chuckling, scrolling through his phone. His smirk widened at the memory of the old man's trembling hands. The bell chimed again. He looked up, expecting another customer. But what he saw froze him in place. The old man had returned. Only this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him, the SEALs fanned out, their tactical gear gleaming under the shop's fluorescent lights. The air grew thick, charged. Customers backed away instinctively, clearing space as if they could sense something sacred about to unfold. The clerk's smirk melted into a pale expression of shock. His voice cracked. See, can I help you?" The SEAL commander stepped forward, his presence commanding but calm. His eyes burned with controlled fire as he spoke. "Is there a problem here?" The clerk swallowed hard, suddenly struggling for words. "And no, sir. Everything's fine." The commander's gaze shifted briefly to the veteran, then snapped back to the trembling clerk. "This man you threw out, he's not just a veteran. He's the reason soldiers like us even exist. He carried this flag through fire and blood before we were even born. And you dare disrespect him?" The clerk stammered, words tumbling clumsily. I didn't mean." But before he could finish, the veteran raised a hand gently, silencing the SEAL. His voice was quiet but filled with dignity. "No need to scare the boy. He doesn't understand what it costs to carry freedom on your back." The commander's jaw tightened. His respect for the veteran was written on his face. But he also knew some lessons couldn't be left unspoken. He turned to his men. "Line up." In a heartbeat, the SEALs snapped into formation down the aisle. Their boots slammed against the floor in perfect rhythm, rifles across their chests. The room fell into stunned silence. Every customer's eyes were wide, their breath caught in their throats. The clerk could only stand frozen, crushed beneath the weight of his own arrogance. Loudspeaker, if this moment shocked you as much as it shocked them, hit the like button. It helps more people see this story. The shop was silent, the kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. Every customer stood frozen as the SEALs snapped into formation, shoulders squared, rifles held across their chests, boots planted with military precision. Their eyes were locked forward, but their presence filled every inch of the room. The veteran stood in the center, small in stature but towering in dignity. His faded cap, stitched with Vietnam veteran, seemed to glow under the harsh shop lights. His lips trembled, not with fear, but with emotion he hadn't let himself feel in years. The SEAL commander stepped closer, his voice calm but ringing with authority. "Sir, with respect, some lessons must be taught." Then, with a sharp command, he snapped his fingers. In perfect unison, the SEALs raised their right hands to salute. The sound of their boots shifting echoed like thunder across the floor. The clerk's face drained of color, his arrogance stripped away as he realized the weight of the man he had mocked. Customers straightened their backs, some blinking away tears, others instinctively pressing their hands over their hearts. The veteran's eyes welled. His hands trembled as he reached up and slowly removed his cap. With reverence, he pressed it against his chest. For a moment, time stood still. The SEALs held their salute, unwavering. The veteran's voice broke the silence, low but steady, carrying the weight of decades. "Young man, one day you'll learn respect. Not because someone forces you, but because you'll realize you've been walking free, on the sacrifice of men you'll never meet." The clerk lowered his head, unable to look up. His shame was louder than any insult he had thrown. The SEAL commander's eyes softened as he looked at the veteran. "Sir, you are not forgotten. Not by us. Not ever." The old soldier straightened his back. In that instant, the years melted away. He wasn't just an old man anymore, he was the 19-year-old who had carried brothers through jungles, who had bled under the same flag these young men now carried forward. Tears shimmered in his eyes, but his voice carried strength. "Thank you, boys. You didn't have to come." The commander smiled faintly. "We did, sir." Because we don't leave a brother standing alone. The SEALs lowered their salute in perfect unison. The echo of boots snapping back into stance reverberated through the room. And then, applause. It started quietly, one or two customers clapping. But soon, the whole shop was filled with the sound, hands clapping, some people crying openly, others standing taller than they had when they walked in. The veteran adjusted his cap, pride gleaming in his eyes. For the first time in years, the humiliation was gone, replaced with something unshakable. He was still a soldier. Still a brother. Still honored. The SEALs escorted him toward the door, their boots echoing in reverence. The clerk never raised his head. He didn't need to, the lesson was already carved deep into him. The bell over the door chimed as the veteran stepped into the evening air. This time, he walked taller. Because respect had spoken louder than insult. Because a salute had spoken louder than shame. Because some men never stop carrying freedom, no matter how heavy it gets. If this story touched you, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs the reminder.